Welcome back to the Master Your Money podcast with me, Marini Jackson, your guide to mastering money, building wealth, and creating financial freedom. Let's dive into today's episode. So, this topic is very, very important. And at the time of this recording, it is in the month of August. And the reason I say it's near and dear to my heart is because the area of the country where I live, we are in the midst of hurricane season. So we're going to talk about when life happens, financially preparing for emergencies. So, as I said, we're talking about emergency preparedness. Specifically, we're going to talk about how to prepare financially for not just natural disasters like hurricanes, but also medical emergencies, accidents in your home, and also vehicle accidents. Emergencies are rarely convenient. They are often very, very expensive. And although we cannot predict every crisis, we can create financial safety nets for ourselves that help us respond without immediately relying on credit cards, payday loans, or money that's designated for our monthly bills. And I do want to say this, especially again where I live. Emergency preparedness is more than about getting bottled water, flashlights, batteries. It also means having the savings, insurance, important documents, and a plan for accessing money when life suddenly changes. And a financial emergency plan gives you options. It may not eliminate the stress of that emergency, but it can help keep a difficult situation from being a long-term financial crisis for you and your family. So let's discuss the 4 emergencies again that we should prepare for. First is medical emergencies. A medical emergency can result in expenses that will extend beyond the hospital bill. And you may face prescription costs, transportation expenses, follow-up appointments, rehabilitation, special equipment, childcare, and any unpaid time away from work. When you want to do this first. You want to start by understanding your health insurance. Know what your deductibles are, your co-payments, your co-insurance, your out-of-pocket maximum, your prescription coverage, and at which hospitals and urgent care centers are in your network. And this can make a huge difference. I know I've never, to my knowledge, or I don't know if it happened when I was an infant or anything, I don't think so, but when I've been with family members who've had an emergency, one of the things the emergency staff who are driving the ambulance will ask is, where do you want to go? Which hospital do you want to go to? And for some people, depending on what that person's status is, they need to go to the very first hospital. In my area, there are 3 hospitals, but I know that I think two of them are connected, and one is a totally different, uses a different healthcare system. So if someone, for instance, had a life-threatening emergency and they just needed to go to the first hospital or the closest one to where they live, if it's a network, great. If not, then there could be some significant out-of-pocket expenses because they went to an out-of-network hospital, for instance. You also want to keep an updated list of your medications, your allergies, medical conditions, your physicians, and your emergency contacts. And I do want to add this: if you are a caregiver, you want to also maintain this list for the person you care for as well. So that can be a mother, father, aunt, uncle, child. you want to keep that information on hand for the person you're caring for. Also, and I'm looking at my notes on the side, if you are employed, you want to also check to make sure if your employer provides paid sick leave, short-term disability insurance, and an insurance explanation of benefits. You want to ask questions ahead of time about charges you do not understand. You may be able to request an itemized bill, establish an interest-free payment plan, apply for medical assistance, or even negotiate certain costs. I had a colleague, and I dedicated one of the prior episodes to him, Marshall. He had a medical procedure coming up, and again, we sat right next to each other, and of course, we were in cubicles. So not only I heard this conversation, but others as well. But that's besides the point. The point of the matter is he had a medical procedure, and he was making some phone calls. He was calling his doctor's office, calling the insurance company. He wanted to know, long and short, how long he was going to be out of work, his proposed return to work date, because the employer needed to know that. But then also, he was a military veteran, so he opted not to enroll in the company's medical insurance, but just to keep his insurance with TRICARE, which is what a lot of military people have, the name of the insurance a lot of military active and veterans have. So he was calling to find out all of this information ahead of time to see, what expenses were covered, what wasn't, and essentially, he was making choices that, financially was in his best interest, so that he would be aware if he had any additional fees he had to pay after that procedure was completed. The second thing you want to prepare for is natural disasters. Now, depending on where you live, your household may need to prepare for things like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, fires, earthquakes, extreme heat, or winter storms. And for families in coastal areas, hurricane and flood preparation are especially important. Excuse me. You do want to create an emergency kit with water, non-perishable food, flashlights, batteries, medications, first aid supplies, your hygiene products, portable phone chargers for your cell phones, pet supplies, and copies of important documents. And your financial disaster kit should include your identification, insurance information, bank contact information, your medical information, emergency contacts, and a small amount of cash and manageable denominations. For instance, you don't want to have your emergency cash to all be $100 bills. You want something that if you had to break maybe a $20 bill or get change back from a $20 bill, then it's easy for you to do so. I do know a few years ago when, I can't remember, it was hurricane season or we had some snow. And where I live, snow is not an annual occurrence. So for our region to get snow, it did impact power in some areas. And I recall driving past a gas station and they had a sign out on the door that said that they were only accepting cash. So imagine if you had to drive your car, you needed gas, and you just had your debit card, you'd be in some trouble. So definitely have cash in manageable denominations. And cash can be helpful as I just shared, when electricity goes out, when internet service is down, or when those payment systems, those point of sale machines within stores or at gas stations or at the pump, even when those type of things are unavailable. You also want to make sure you're taking pictures, and some people even take videos of every room in your home. You want to include your furniture, your electronics, your appliances, and any valuable belongings. And you want to store these pictures securely online. That's something very easy to do with your cell phones. I know for me, I'm an Apple phone user, so I can store it to the clouds or the iCloud, or if you have Google, you can store it in your Google Drive, etc. And this documentation will help you to support an insurance claim. You also want to make sure that you are reviewing your homeowner or renter's insurance annually. Don't assume that every natural disaster is covered by your insurance company. Standard policies may exclude certain events such as flooding. Ask your insurance agent about what is covered, what is excluded, and whether additional coverage is appropriate. In my particular area where I live, I am not in what's considered a flood zone, but I do know, I think it was maybe nearly a decade ago, during hurricane season, my family had to evacuate and we were out of town. My community, we have a community Facebook group. So basically the subdivision I live in, we have a Facebook group, and I know that there are other platforms that allow neighbors to connect. But essentially, at that time, my community was still undergoing construction. It actually still is. But at that time, some of the drains were covered by, I don't even know what they're called. It's like these huge black things that were covering the water drains. So in my area, although I wasn't by insurance standards in a flood area, some of my neighbors, they had some water that got pretty high and close to their homes because we were having construction in our area. If there were additional flooding and rains or heavy rains, it could have potentially impacted their homes and potentially mine as well. So even though you may not, again, be in a flood area, you want to also make sure you're having an annual policy review with your insurance agent so that you can evaluate your needs and also what may have changed in your personal situation. And if you must evacuate, know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and what you're going to take, and then how much transportation and temporary lodging may cost. I believe, I don't recall the year, my family and I, we've had to evacuate a few times, but one year, I believe we were evacuated for about a week or a week and a half. And fortunately, we were in one city, stayed there for a few days, and then we were scheduled to go to a conference out of town in another city. So that conference wasn't in a hurricane impacted area. So we were able to, long and short, go to that town. We had hotel reservations, but we also had a relative who let us stay. So that for us cut down on some of our evacuation expenses. But have those plans in mind, communicate early and often with your loved ones during hurricane season or whatever natural disaster season may impact your area. I know that some platforms like Facebook, some people may mark themselves safe. I know for my family, my uncles who are in various parts of the country, they call my mom and just they will say, hey, I saw on the news that there may be a hurricane hitting in your area. Are you okay? Are you home? Are you scheduled to evacuate? Where are you going? Having those conversations again early and often with your loved ones will save a lot of time, effort, and potentially money as well. So, number 3, the third one is your home emergencies and accidents. Home emergencies can include fires, water leaks, broken heating and cooling systems, electrical problems, storm damage, theft, and appliance failures. Homeowners should build a separate home maintenance fund in addition to their general emergency fund. And your emergency savings may cover a sudden loss of income, while the home fund can cover things like your broken water heater, your plumbing repairs, roofing damage, and or an insurance deductible. So some things you do want to know where they are located in your home or your apartment area, I should say, as well, is know where the water shutoff valve is, your electrical panel, your fire extinguisher, and your emergency supplies. Everyone who is able to help should know how to use them safely. So if you are at home, you have a family, for instance, if you have a fire extinguisher, if you don't, I'll say this first. If you do not have a fire extinguisher, they're very easy to obtain. You can go to any home supply store like Home Depot, Lowe's, etc., and buy an appropriate home fire extinguisher. And it's clearly marked on the labeled on the box, like what types of fire, whether it's like oil or electrical fires or all types of fires. But make sure that you are aware of the type of fire extinguisher you have, but also that you and your family know how to use it. Also, you want to make sure that you keep your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors working, and you're scheduling regular maintenance for your major systems. And this preventive maintenance may feel like an expense, but it can prevent a much more expensive emergency. Now, this is something that, as I grew up as a child, which was heavily mentioned on the news and back then newspapers, but for your smoke detectors, one good way to keep track of like the battery life is you can switch out check your smoke detectors or smoke alarms, but then also make sure you're keeping the batteries changed by when the daylight savings time, when the time changes, if that applies to you, go ahead and change your batteries for those particular devices. And that way you'll have a regular cadence on once you're keeping those things maintained. And that, again, that preventive maintenance, it may feel painful, paying for maintenance, but trust and believe. I have had the experience, even with having appliances and systems in my home maintained, that when something breaks, it can be pretty expensive. So as a renter, you also need protection. I've had plenty of colleagues recently, and actually in my city, there was an entire apartment complex that a few months ago burned down. You as a renter, you need protection, and a landlord's policy generally protects the building, but not the renter's personal possessions. Your renter's insurance is what's going to be something that may cover your belongings, liability, and certain temporary living expenses depending on your policy. So again, talk to your insurance agent and make sure that you are clear on what your rental policy will cover. Fourth, and this is the final type of emergency we'll cover today, vehicle accidents and transportation emergencies. A vehicle accident can create repair bills, medical costs, towing fees, rental car expenses, insurance deductibles, lost income, etc. You may have to go to court, lawyer fees. It can be quite expensive. But even a mechanical breakdown can disrupt your ability to work or care for your family. You want to review your auto insurance policy coverage and also your deductibles. Understand the difference between liability, collision, comprehensive, uninsured, and underinsured motorist coverage. They're all completely different things. You also want to understand the medical coverage, any rental reimbursement, towing, and roadside assistance included in your policy. Keep your proof of insurance, registration information, emergency contacts, a phone charger, a flashlight, your basic first aid supplies, reflective markers, water, and weather appropriate supplies in your vehicle. If an accident occurs, you want to make sure you prioritize safety and contact emergency services when necessary. Exchange information, photograph the scene when it's safe, document the damage, obtain witness information, and notify your insurance company promptly. Avoid making statements about fault at the scene. Also, you want to create a backup transportation plan. Ask yourself this question: if my car became unavailable tomorrow, how would I get to work, medical appointments, church, or the grocery store? Knowing these options in advance can reduce both panic and unnecessary spending. So I have I have stories about this, some of my own, but then also some of friends and loved ones. But the important thing is having like your insurance, your registration. For me, I keep a notebook and a pen in my glove compartment in the car as well. Once someone hit my car and she just was emphasizing the scratch on the bumper, saying that could get buffed out. She did not mention that she knocked out one of my tail lights, which could not be buffed out, and was attempting to flee the scene. But I of course called the police, and we exchanged information. I made sure I took a picture of the damage of her license and registration, and then it was sitting in my car after that. Thankfully, neither one of us were like medically hurt, but my car took the impact of her following too close and attempting to drive around. But it's important to make sure you have those things in hand. Keep your phone charged when you're in the car as well, so you can make those type of calls. Fortunately, the weather was daylight, a sunny day, but especially if it's nighttime or if there's inclement weather, that can potentially present some challenges. So now we're going to talk about the heart of your financial emergency preparedness, and that is your emergency fund. Your first goal can be a starter emergency fund of $1,000. And if that seems overwhelming for you, let's just start with $250, $250, and then we're going to build it to $500 and then continue towards $1,000. So after reaching your starter goal, work towards saving 1 month of essential expenses. And if you don't know what essential expenses means, go back and check out some of my previous podcasts where we talk about essential and non-essential expenses, because your shelter, of course, is essential, your food, things of that nature, essential, but other things such as a sale, that's not essential. shoe sale at your favorite store, not essential. Um, the longer term goal for you is to save 3 to 5 months of your essential expenses. And you may want a larger cushion if you're a homeowner, if you're a caregiver, if you're a single income household, if you're self employed, if you're managing health concerns, or you're working in an unpredictable industry. So keep your emergency savings separate, easily accessible, and in a in a federally insured savings account. It should be accessible in a true emergency, but you want to make sure you're separating enough, but it's separate enough that you're not tempted to use it for that ordinary spending. And the emergency fund, again, it's should generally be used for things that are necessary, unexpected, and urgent. So again, like I was talking about the shoes, a vacation, a sale, or your routine expenses are not emergencies. Your medical deductible, an urgent home repair, insurance deductibles, evacuation costs, or essential car repairs may qualify for emergencies. So in addition to your savings, you want to create an emergency binder or some type of secure folder, digital folder that has your ID, your house information, your health, your home, your renters, your life, and your auto policies, your bank and credit card contact information, your medical information and medication lists, emergency contacts, your property and vehicle records, excuse me, your wills, your trust power of attorney and any healthcare directives, your recent home inventory photographs, and instructions on accessing important accounts. So you want to protect this sensitive information with encryption or secure storage, and make sure that a trusted person knows how to access this information if you become unable to manage it yourself. So this is what makes up basically your your digital vault for yourself. So for instance, if your home burned down and you needed to access this information, you have nothing but the clothes on your back, and you need to contact your insurance company, your bank, all of these different places, and give the account numbers. Having this digital vault or this digital lockbox in essence with this information is going to prove invaluable to you. So here's your plan this week for your emergency preparedness. So pick at least, let's start with at least one, commit to at least one of these goals this week. Set a starter emergency fund goal. So remember, $1,000, or if that seems a little too steep, let's start out with $250. Automate a weekly or payday transfer into your savings. Review your insurance coverage and deductibles. You also want to create or update your household emergency kit. Photograph your home and valuable belongings. Gather important documents into one secure location. Create your medical, evacuation, transportation, and communication plans. Choose a trusted emergency contact. This is very important. I've recently heard a tragic story where someone felt that their relative's spouse was a good person for an emergency contact, and they did not complete something they needed to, and it had bad implications for the person. So make sure this is someone you trust. that you can get into who will answer your phone call if you get into an emergency. Also, review the plan with everyone in your household. So, parents, if you have small children, let them know if school is if school is out because of a hurricane coming, for instance. This is what our family plans to do, so that everyone is aware. Also, schedule a reminder to update everything every 6 months, because life changes, life happens, and you don't want this information to become outdated. Um, if your money is currently tight, remember that preparedness doesn't have to happen all at once. So, like I said, with the list that I just gave, start with one. If everything seems a bit overwhelming, save, even if you have to start $5 or $10 at a time. Buy one emergency kit item this week. Organize with the documents you already have. You can also check your smoke detectors. That I can definitely say for myself is on my personal list for this week, because I didn't change them when the time, my batteries when the time changed. Also, download your insurance information. And these small steps still create protection. Preparing for an emergency is not living in fear. It's practicing wisdom and stewardship, because Proverbs 21:5 reminds us the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. And preparation allows us to respond with greater clarity, protect the people that we love, reduce financial damage caused by these unexpected events. So, your challenge again is to complete one financial preparedness task within the next 24 hours. So, for instance, that can be opening your savings account, transferring your first $10 or more, review one insurance policy, or start your emergency document folder. And please do not wait till an emergency happens to create an emergency plan. Again, we want to make sure that we are prepared. So let me know in the comments below which item you are going to do, or even after you've done it. Just let me know. I did this, started my emergency fund, or transferred my first, $25 or $10, or let me know. I'd love to cheer you on, be that accountability for you. And like I said, I will be checking my batteries, because I haven't done that for my smoke detectors. But thank you again for tuning into the Master Your Money podcast. And you can, if you want to take the next step in your financial journey, you can go to my website, www.virtuefinancialsolutions.org, and there you'll find more information about programs as well as products to help you on your financial journey. So remember, we don't just manage our money, we master it.